Okay, hello everyone. Thank you for joining this webinar today. I hope you're having a wonderful afternoon. My name is Nick Lusson, and I work for a company called Jubaili Bros Solar. And I am based in Nairobi, so I help to manage the operations here across East Africa. And today we are going to be talking about the Huawei Luna battery storage solution. But first, I want to tell you just a bit about Jubaili Bros Solar. So we have been in business for more than 40 years, and we started in Lebanon in 1977. We then expanded into Dubai in the UAE. We also into Nigeria, which is now one of our largest operations. We have almost 1,000 employees. We also opened in Afghanistan, Kuwait, Ghana, Qatar, Uganda, South Africa, Pakistan, and Kenya. So in our solar division, which our solar division was founded in 2017, we currently have 25 employees. We are in 5 regions around the world. Here is a map of our global logistics reach. So everywhere that you see a flag, we have customers or distributors or sister companies. So you can see it's quite a big reach across Africa and the Middle East. So as Jubaili Bros, we have 6 key pillars of activities that we use to support our partners. You can see them on the screen there. So the first one is product supply. That's very simple. We supply the products, top quality products. We can supply them around the world. Pillar number 2 is training. So we can do training and webinars on a variety of topics, including about the Huawei products and more. So obviously this is an example of that, and we have many more topics that we can do. The third pillar is engineering support. So this means we can verify your solar designs. We can help you, on tendering or designing to optimize your equipment. We can look at your bill of quantities, make sure nothing is duplicated, nothing is missing, those type of things. The fourth pillar is leads. From time to time, we engage with end users, and we're happy to pass those leads on to our EPC partners. The fifth pillar is referral to finance. There's many finance partners in the industry, and if you need help getting your project financed, we're happy to make those introductions. And the sixth pillar is after sales support. So this is commissioning support, troubleshooting support, warranty support, things like that. So this is how we separate ourselves from other distributors in the market with these 6 pillars of activities. Now let's look at the equipment that we do supply. These are the 4 product categories. We have the Huawei Fusion Solar inverters and accessories. We have Lumax aluminum mounting structures. These are very high quality mounting structures. They come from South Africa. We have tier 1 solar modules. So we have recently partnered with Jinko, so we can supply Jinko solar panels to your projects. And also balance of system components. This could be like DC cables, power meters, weather stations, and things like that. So regarding Huawei, Huawei is one of our strongest partners. And Jubaili Bros is the VAP, which is the value added partner, and CSP, which is certified service provider. So as the value added partner in our regions, we handle inquiries with Huawei up to 100 megawatts. And we also provide those support services I mentioned. For CSP, this means we are certified service professionals for Huawei service related issues. We are certified and trained so we can help you with your problems regarding Huawei. Okay, now let's get started on the topic we are here for today. That is the Luna battery storage. So the Luna is the name of the Huawei battery product. It is a lithium-ion battery. It is part of the residential range of products. So I'll explain this more, but it's part of the residential range, which means it works with the residential inverters. So in order to talk about the Luna properly, we will also show you the products that it works with. So here you can see the Luna. This is what it looks like. You can see they put some effort into making it look beautiful. Especially compared to lead acid and sealed gel batteries, this is very attractive product. It can be put in your home. You don't have to hide it like you would with a lead acid or sealed gel battery. And as I said, it's part of the residential product range. So you can see here, this is the residential overview. So the residential product range, Huawei has the Luna battery storage. They also have residential inverters. And there's an accessory called the backup box. I'll explain that later. There's an accessory called the smart power sensor. This is just a power meter, but I'll explain that later. We have the communication device called a smart dongle. And Huawei also has PV optimizers. So this is what it would all look like with a full residential solution. Let's start with the inverters. So the residential inverters, Huawei has 3-phase and single phase. So there you can see on the screen, the left side is single phase, the right side is 3-phase. So on the single phase inverters, the sizes are 2 kilowatt, 3 kilowatt, 3.68 kilowatt, 4, 4.6, 5, and 6 kilowatt. So there's a big range right there. 2 is the smallest, 6 is the largest. I want you to see there on the left box, the beginning of the writing at the top, Sun 2000, then it has the number, then KTL L1. The L1 lets you know it's single phase. So on our product names, the inverters that are L1 are single phase. The smallest is 2 kilowatt, largest is 6 kilowatt. Now on the 3-phase, it's on the right side of the screen. The sizes that we have are 3 kilowatt, 4 kilowatt, 5 kilowatt, 6 kilowatt, 8 kilowatt, and 10 kilowatt. 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10. These are the 3-phase. You can see their name is M1. So the M lets you know it's a 3-phase inverter. The L1 lets you know it's a single-phase inverter. So both of these ranges are compatible with the Luna. The Luna is not compatible with the larger sizes. The Luna is compatible with 10 kilowatt and below from the Huawei range, the single phase and the 3-phase. It's the same Luna product for the single phase and the 3-phase. The Luna doesn't have a different product, but it works with both inverters. Okay, so let's continue now. Yes, this is the Luna itself. So basically there's 2 components. There is the power module and there is the battery module. So the power module is, let me put my pointer on if this will allow me. Where is it? Okay, here, I think my pointer can be seen now. So this top part, and here it has the logo, it's called the power module. Someone has said the shared screen is not visible. I hope you guys can all see the slides. Okay, let's continue. So I hope my pointer is visible now, but if it's not, I'm pointing at the top components where you can see like the logo and, okay, great. Someone says they can see the pointer. So this is the power module. It serves almost like a charge controller. It's the intelligent part of the system. It regulates the power in and out of the battery. Then below that, these blocks here are the battery module. So the Luna is modular. So you can have one battery, two battery, or three batteries. Each battery module has 5 kilowatt hours of storage. So in this tower here, we have one power module and we have 3 battery modules. Each one is 5 kilowatt hours. So in a full tower like this, that's 15 kilowatt hours. You always need one power module at least, and the one power module can support up to 3 battery modules. So you could have one battery or 2 batteries or 3 batteries in a single tower with a single power module. And then 2 power modules can be linked together and the other power module can also have 3 more batteries. So you can have up to 30 kilowatt hours of storage per inverter. So I'll talk more about that later. This is just a brief introduction. You can see what the product looks like. It's a lithium-ion battery, which is a very good technology. It's actually, the cells are lithium iron phosphate. So this is one of the most stable and safe lithium ion chemistries. Within lithium ion, there's many different chemistries. This one is lithium iron phosphate, and it's a very stable, very powerful chemistry. Okay, so let's continue. Now here we have an accessory called the backup box. We have a single phase version and a 3-phase version. And the main function of the backup box is to keep, to allow the 3-phase inverter to work off grid. So what I mean by that is, first of all, the Huawei inverters are grid-tied inverters, but they're also battery ready. So they're not like a traditional hybrid inverter. They are grid-tied inverters that are battery ready. You don't need 2 inverters. You can connect the Luna directly here. Now, the backup box, when the grid goes off, the backup box sets the reference frequency and voltage so that the Huawei inverter can continue to work off grid when the grid fails. So I'll tell you more about this later. I just want to introduce it to you and give you a brief explanation now. And the next part of the residential range is the optimizer and the power meter. So let's start on the right side, the smart power sensor. This is a power meter. It just measures the current that is passing from the grid to the load. This is the device that allows for zero export. So we know in many regions across the world, you're not allowed to feed your solar energy back into the grid. So this is a power meter that is compatible with the Huawei inverter. It allows you to set export limitation settings. So it could be zero export to the grid, or you can limit it other ways also. If you are in a region that requires zero export to the grid, you will need this product to prevent the solar energy feeding the grid. Now on the left side, let's look at the PV optimizer. So the PV optimizer is a device that it acts like a module level MPPT. So I won't talk about it in so much detail today because the focus is on the Luna. I just want to bring it up because there's a special feature I'll tell you about later. But this is what the optimizer looks like. The max power is 450 watts. So your panel must be 450 watts or below. And yeah, it allows you to get more energy from your panels, especially when your roof space is limited, especially when it is a complicated roof with different angles, and also when there's different shadows. Basically, you can see on the screen here, when a shadow falls on your PV string, all of the panels within that MPPT are affected. All of the panels that are within that MPPT will have a slightly limited performance because there's a shadow on one or two panels. If you have the optimizers, only the panels with the shadows will be affected. The other panels within the same MPPT will continue to give you 100%. So we do have webinars on the optimizer. So if you're having more questions, you can feel free to look at one of those webinars or to ask them. Actually, I forgot to enable the Q&A mode. So if you see the chat box now, there's a Q&A mode. If you have any questions, please type your questions into the chat box, but use the question mark feature there, and I'll address all of your questions at the end. So please try to use the Q&A mode for your questions. Okay, now the optimizer has another feature, and it's called long string design. The Huawei inverters, we recommend a DC to AC ratio of about 1.3. So that means you can have about 1.3 times more DC capacity than your AC capacity. So for example, a very simple example, on a 1 kilowatt system, with the inverter is 1 kilowatt, your panels should be 1.3 times more, so 1.3 kilowatts. With the PV optimizer, you can increase your DC to AC ratio all the way up to 2. With a full optimized solution, you can have twice as much PV power as your AC inverter capacity. So we call this the long string design because you can have more panels in your string. You can get all the way up to a 2-to-1 DC to AC ratio. And yes, that links to the Luna later. That's why I'm introducing it at this point. So I'm going to skip these slides about the optimizer. I've included them in the presentation just so that you get it in the email after this. Everyone is going to receive this presentation as a PDF. So these optimizer slides are in the presentation, but I've highlighted the important parts for us today. So let's continue. Now, this is another product in the residential range. This is the communication device, and it's called a smart dongle. It's a USB device. It looks like a flash disk. You just plug it in USB style to the inverter, and it has a twist cap to keep the dust out. But there you can see the two models we have. We have the smart dongle WLAN FE, and we have the smart dongle 4G. The 4G model uses a SIM card, and it connects to the 4G network like a cell phone, you could say. So you have to have a SIM card, and you have to load it with data or prepayment, whatever it is in your region. It has to have data to connect to the 4G network. On the left side, we have the smart dongle WLAN FE. So this is for wireless connections or a fast Ethernet connection. The FE is fast Ethernet. So this dongle will allow you to connect to any Wi-Fi that is in the range. And the whole idea for this is the remote monitoring. This is the device that allows you for remote monitoring. You can remotely see the performance of your PV system. And as it relates to the Luna, what's great is you will see it all on the same app. So this dongle allows you to use this app that's on the screen now, the Fusion Solar app 7.0. Huawei has a very advanced or very user-friendly feature that the same app that you use to commission the system is the same app that you will use to remotely monitor the system. And also the fact that when you have the Luna, which is the Huawei Luna with the Huawei inverter, you can see everything on the same app. You'll be able to see the PV generation, the status of your battery, how everything's performing, if there's any alerts or alarms. So everything from the battery to the PV will be on the same app. Okay, now let's get back to the Luna and discuss. Now that you've seen the range and you know how it works, so you have the Huawei inverter, the Luna, the dongles, and the smart meter, and the PV optimizer is optional. So sorry, one point about the dongle. This dongle, the WLAN dongle, is included with the inverters in the residential range. For the 10 kilowatt and below, you get a free dongle included in the box. You do not have to buy this separately. You have to buy the dongle separately for the larger product sizes. Above 10 kilowatts, this dongle is sold separately. 10 kilowatts and below, the WLAN dongle is included in the box and you do not have to buy it separately. Okay, here's the Luna. As I pointed out earlier, there's two parts basically. There's the power module and the battery module. So the power module is the one on top. As I've said, it's like the intelligent part of the system. And the battery modules are modular at 5 kilowatt hours each. So you could have one of these or two or three. These batteries give you a very flexible expansion because you can start with one battery module, 5 kilowatt hours, and then maybe after a year or two, if your consumption increases, you can add another 5 kilowatt module. You can mix old and new pieces because each unit operates independently. You can get 100% depth of discharge from each module. And the health of one module does not affect the health of the other module because they operate independently. If you've worked with lead acid or sealed gel batteries, you'll know that you cannot add old batteries. You cannot add a new battery to old batteries. The performance of your weakest battery will limit the performance of all the other batteries. That's not true with the Luna. The Luna, each one operates independently. Here you can see two towers are connected to a single inverter. So they have two power modules. Each one has 3 battery modules. So this system here has 30 kilowatt hours of storage, 30. So you could have anything between 5 and 30. You could have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, or 30. You get 100% depth of discharge. So that's very useful. You don't have any, you get to consume all of the energy you store. You don't have to, there's no energy that you're not going to use. Now, a very great feature of the Huawei inverters, they have 2 times the power. So what that means is for each of these inverters, they can power a load and charge a battery at the full rated capacity simultaneously. So, for example, the 5 kilowatt inverter can power a load, AC load of 5 kilowatts and charge the batteries at 5 kilowatts simultaneously. Most other manufacturers on a 5 kilowatt inverter, you could only split the 5 kilowatts, maybe 2 kilowatts to the load, 3 kilowatts to the battery. The Huawei inverters give you the full rated power to a load or to the battery simultaneously. Now, you might be thinking, okay, where does it get that power from? Because if a 5 kilowatt inverter, if it has only like 6 kilowatts of panels, it could do 3 and 3 only. So this relates to the optimizer, because the optimizer allows you to put a DC to AC ratio of up to 2. So with a 5 kilowatt inverter with optimizers, you could have 10 kilowatts of panels. And at any point during the day, you could power a load of 5 kilowatts and charge the batteries at 5 kilowatts simultaneously. So this makes it very interesting when it comes to sizing and pricing, because first of all, only one inverter is needed. You don't need 2 inverters as you would with some manufacturers. But also you can often use a smaller inverter size than you would with other manufacturers, if you're also using optimizers in some cases. So yeah, as I've said, the Huawei inverters can power the load and charge the batteries at the full rated capacity simultaneously. And the Huawei Luna solution is very safe. The inverters have many built-in safety features that we talk about in other webinars, but the Luna has each battery module has temperature sensors in each of the corners. So they have 8 temperature sensors in each battery module for the safest solution. So you don't have to worry about any fires or any arcing. Sometimes that's a problem with batteries, especially lead acid and sealed gel. So this solution is the safest on the market. And then with the backup box, this allows you to continue to have power even when the grid is off. So we're going to talk about some examples, and we'll go through some scenarios and some line diagrams to help you see how it will work in different scenarios. But as I mentioned before, it's really great that this is all compatible, fully compatible from the same manufacturer. That means you can monitor it very easily, you can troubleshoot it very easily, and it makes it more flexible with your design. You can add things later and it will all work together. All right, so yeah, this slide is just to let you know that there is lots of support that you can find online, including installation videos. So if you go to YouTube, you can search installation videos, and almost all of these installation videos are there. And if you don't find the one you're looking for, you can actually go to support.huawei.com, and you can search for these, and you can find installation videos there. Jubaili Bros Solar has a YouTube channel with many installation videos and product videos. Huawei Fusion Solar has a YouTube channel with great videos. So you can find these at any time on YouTube or through Huawei. Okay, so now let's look at some examples here. Okay, some of that writing is white and it can't be seen easily. But this scenario here is a single phase scenario. Single phase grid tied, okay? So there, almost in the center, we have the inverter, the Sun 2000 5 KTL L1 inverter. And you can see the panels are there. In this scenario, we have 6 kilowatts of panels because it's a 5 kilowatt inverter. So we've used a DC to AC ratio of like 1.2. You can see the dongle there. The dongle is included in the box with the inverter, so you don't have to buy it separately, but it is the communication device that allows you to connect to the app. Here on the bottom left, you can see the Luna. You can see there's a power module and a battery module. So remember, you always need at least one power module. One power module can have up to 3 battery modules. Each battery module is 5 kilowatt hours of storage. So in this scenario, we have 5 kilowatt hours of storage. And we have a smart power sensor here. This is to prevent any export to the grid. So this is a pretty simple scenario. You can see there is no backup box. So on the single phase scenario, the backup box is optional and it will continue to work if the grid goes out. On the single phase inverter, you do not need the backup box. Now, this is an off-grid scenario. Basically, it's the same as before, but it is off-grid. And this can work fine. Single phase, this will be a beautiful solution for a single phase off-grid scenario. This is a 5 kilowatt inverter, 5 kilowatts or 6 kilowatts of panels. You have 5 kilowatt hours of storage. You don't need a smart power sensor because there's no grid. The dongle is included in the box with the inverter. So all you really need is the power module, the battery module, and the inverter. This is a off-grid single phase scenario. Okay, the next example here. This is grid tied, 10 kilowatts of AC. The inverter is 10 kilowatts, and it has 30 kilowatt hours of storage, 30. So the panels are there as normal. The dongle is there. It was included in the box with the inverter. It did not have to be purchased separately. The bottom left, you can see the Luna. You can see it has 2 power modules and 6 battery modules. Each battery module is 5 kilowatt hours. That's why this system has 30 kilowatt hours of storage. Now this one does have a backup box. You can see it there. So the reason this has a backup box is because this is a grid-tied inverter. When the grid fails, if you don't need the backup, if the grid fails, if you don't have the backup box, the inverter would turn off. So when you have the backup box and the grid fails, the backup box will allow the inverter to keep working, and you can consume energy from the batteries. However, in this scenario, when the grid fails, the Luna will provide power only to your critical loads on a single phase. So let me say that again. So this is a 3-phase scenario. When the grid is present, it works as expected. You don't even need to consume power from the grid because you'll be charging the batteries from the sun, and you'll be consuming the energy from the sun and the energy from the batteries. So even if the grid is present, you will consume very little power from the grid. However, when the grid fails, when there's a blackout, the backup box will allow this system to continue working. However, you will only get power to your critical loads that are on a single phase. So this is why at the bottom center, you can see from the backup box, it is distributed. There's a critical load and a non-critical load. This is because when the grid fails, this 3-phase system will only supply power to your critical loads on a single phase. I hope that makes sense. That's a very key point to keep in mind. So the Luna is a very great application in the case of, number one, if it's a single phase scenario, it works great. Number two, if it's a 3-phase scenario with a stable grid. If the grid is stable, then this is a great 3-phase solution. If the grid is not stable and you have a 3-phase installation, what you will find is that whenever the grid fails, your Luna will only provide power on a single phase to the critical loads. All right, and let's look at one more scenario here. So this is the scenario I was talking about with the full optimized solution. So you can see here the panels have their optimizer. This is a 10 kilowatt inverter. And it's exactly the same scenario as the previous slide. I just wanted to highlight this part, that it can put 10 kilowatts in both directions at the same time. Your AC load can be powered at 10 kilowatts AC from the inverter, and your batteries can charge at 10 kilowatts at the same time. So that was just to illustrate the point a little better here. 10 kilowatts, both directions simultaneously with a full optimized solution. Okay, so the last point I want to make about this solution is that you can set the mode of charging to any mode that you like. So these batteries can be charged by the grid, or they can be charged by solar, or you can set the settings so that it doesn't charge by the grid, or you can have the settings that at nighttime, if the batteries reach a certain depth of discharge, only under that circumstance will it accept from the grid. So it's very flexible in how you can charge them and how you can discharge them. You have full control of that. And all of that is done through the app. And then we're reaching the end of this webinar. So just to conclude, I'd like to say again that this is a very, very great solution for residential solar projects. Residential. And single phase happens to work very well with the Luna. Single phase is, you'll get a very great solution. It can be grid tied or off grid, and you'll have very efficient, very safe power. In the residential 3-phase, there is a limitation, and that limitation is that when the grid fails, it supplies power on a single phase only. So it's preferred, 3-phase application where the grid is very stable, or when you can easily put your critical loads on a single phase and it won't, and the customer's happy with that. Okay, so that is the end of the webinar. Thank you very much. I hope you guys learned a lot about the Luna. I hope now you can start to think about using it in your designs, and you understand when it's a good application for this. So yeah, if you have any technical queries, there's the email, or sales queries, there's the email. I'm now going to go through the questions that are in the chat box. So we will go one by one, and if you have any more questions, you can type them. Okay, so let's start with the questions. Where is it? Whoops. Okay, here we go. Will the PDF format of the webinar be available also? Yes, you should be getting this in your email immediately after this webinar is over. You will get the PDF of these slides. Next question. How Luna load management system works compatibly? How Luna load management system works compatibly? I'm not sure what you mean. Could you please maybe ask that again in a different way? I'm not sure what you're asking. Okay, Conrad says, can you please confirm if the single phase inverter does not need to have the backup box? Let me go back to those slides. I think I may have, let's see. Okay, on a single phase off-grid scenario, you do not need the backup box. On this slide, I think there's a mistake. There should be a backup box here. In a grid-tied single phase, the backup box is preferred. It might be optional, but I know it is preferred in this scenario. I'll have to check on that. For now, let's go with the assumption it's required. Single phase grid-tied backup box is there. Single phase off-grid, you do not need the backup box. Single phase off-grid, you do not need the backup box. Single phase grid-tied, we'll go with the backup box. Okay, next question. What is price quote for Luna with power module and batteries? So if you could please write us an email, we'll be happy to give you a quote. So please, after this, connect with us on LinkedIn, or you'll get an email from us. You can reply and ask for a quote. Okay, for safety purposes, how does the backup box prevent the power from solar being ejected to the grid during shutdown? For safety purposes, how does the backup box prevent the power from solar being injected to the grid during shutdown? I think that has more to do with the smart power sensor than the backup box. The smart power sensor is the device that prevents zero export to the grid. So the backup box, all it does, as I mentioned, these are grid tied inverters. So they need the grid, the presence of the grid as a reference for the frequency and voltage that the inverter will supply. So when the grid fails, normally there's no reference, and so the Huawei inverter shuts down. The backup box will provide the grid reference for the inverter when the grid fails. So the backup box does not really affect the export to the grid. That is the job of the smart power sensor. And the smart power sensor, it knows the load, and it knows if there's any power coming from the grid, or if there's power coming from the solar power. If there is more solar generation than the load and it wants to export it, it automatically tells the inverter to reduce the power generation. I hope that makes sense. That's how the zero export works. That's something we talking about in more detail on a different webinar. So if you have more questions about the zero export, reach out to us or look for our webinar on that topic. Next question, what options do you have for megawatt hour systems? So it's definitely not the Luna. The Luna is for small systems. Huawei has some solutions, but that's we're not going to talk about that today. Today, we're just talking about the Luna. It's a residential battery system. So maybe you can write us an email or inquire with us, and we'll help you point to those megawatt hour systems. Next question. Is the inverters preset with the most settings like SOC, discharge V, charging V? Will we have to change any settings once the complete system has been installed? So SOC is state of charge, discharge voltage, charging voltage. Is the inverter's preset? These are settings that you do on the day of commissioning. So when you're installing the Luna through the app, you'll be able to see the state of charge on the app. The discharging voltage and the charging voltage, yeah, those are preset. When it's a grid tied system, you will set the grid code, and so it will match the voltage and the frequency. So these are parameters that you will set on the day of installation. The second part of your question, will we have to change any settings once the complete system has been installed? No, you shouldn't have to change any settings. If you do all the settings correctly on day one, you won't have to change anything, and you'll be able to see the production on your phone. Okay, next question. How much backup does the batteries connected in Luna power modules gives? How much backup? So the batteries, they'll give you 5 kilowatt hours of storage. So I think that answers your question. How much backup does the batteries connected in Luna power modules give? Each module is 5 kilowatt hours. So you could have 5, 10, or 15. And then in another tower, you could have 20, 25, and 30. Any kind of help for recycling the batteries after the end of its life? That's a good question. I don't know if Huawei has anything like that. This is a very new product, so there's no Lunas that have reached the end of their life yet. So this is a good question. I will try to find the answer to that. But this product was launched this year, so it's a very new thing. How much time does the single battery cell take to charge up? Single battery cell. Okay, well, there's many battery cells within the power module, the battery module. There's many cells inside. The rate of charging depends on the sunlight available, or if you're using the AC. So that's a difficult question to answer. It depends on the sunlight that's available and the size of the inverter that you have. What are the warranties of the Luna system, especially the batteries? Very good question. Sorry that I forgot to mention it. It's 5 years, 5-year warranty, and the expected lifetime is about 4,500 cycles. 4,500 cycles. So that's the lifetime. Let's see. Looks like there's some questions. Some of your questions are not in the Q&A mode, so I'm looking at the chat box now to try to find them. Okay. Someone has asked how much. Oh, okay. I see. I can actually mark it as a question. There we go. Let's see, how did that work? Okay, here, 40,500 for single battery. It's 4,500 cycles for the battery module. How much backup would be provided by the Luna during power cutoff? It depends on how many Lunas you have. Each battery module is 5 kilowatt hours. And based on the size of your inverter, that's going to be the charging and discharging rate. Do we need power optimizer in case the Luna will be powered only from the grid, no PV generation? Luna will be used as backup during power cutoff. Okay, no, you don't need an optimizer. An optimizer attaches to the back of a solar panel. So if there's no solar, there's no optimizers. Now, if your Luna will be powered only from the grid, no PV generator. Okay, yeah, that can work. Yeah, that can work. If it's single phase or 3-phase, that can work. Single. I'm not sure what this is. Let's go back to the chat box. So we're just wrapping this up, guys. So this is a perfect time to, if you have any questions, this is your chance. I'm going to try to fish these ones that are in the chat box. Right now I'm marking them as questions so I can. Just marking these as questions, sorry. Okay, so if you have any questions, type them as a Q&A. I'm gonna finish these existing ones. All right, could you please share the webinar record, as there were some links inside? Yes, you will get a link to the recording and you will get the PDF slides. Do we need smart power sensor in case the Luna will be powered only from the grid, no PV generator? Luna will be, oh, okay. No, you do not need a smart power sensor. Actually, that's a good question. I guess theoretically, the batteries could export to the grid. So I'm going to say yes. If you want to prevent export to the grid, you need the smart power sensor. Does the solar provide power to the system when power grid is off? Does the solar provide power to the system when power grid is off? Okay, so if the grid is off, you want to continue to consume, you want the solar to work, you need a backup box and a Luna, and then the inverter. If you do not have the backup box, the solar will not continue to work. The backup box allows it to continue to work when the grid is off. But as I mentioned, on a 3-phase system, when you have the grid and you have the Luna and you have the backup box, when the grid is present, it will work perfectly. You will get power on all 3 phases from the Luna. When the grid goes off, the Luna becomes single phase for your critical load. When the grid returns, all three phases will return. But when the grid goes off on a three-phase system, the Luna will provide power on a single phase. Is the Luna compatible with other inverters? That's a good question. I'm not sure. I know that the Huawei inverters are only compatible with the Luna. The Huawei inverters are not compatible with any other battery. I think there is a list of compatible inverters that we can provide to you. So please ask this over email and we'll get back to you. How much maximum load can be run over 15 kilowatt Luna ESS? So the discharge rate depends on the inverter, and so the maximum load is determined by the inverter. Okay, how can the Luna be maintained for effective delivery, and what is the lifespan of the Luna? Okay, the lifespan of the Luna is 4,500 cycles. So you could get 8 to 10 years of that. And just so you know, what that means is at the end of 4,500 cycles, it will be working at 80% capacity, 80. So there's still a life after that. One thing that's really great about lithium-ion batteries is that they are not so temperature sensitive as much as other battery chemistries. So generally, you don't need to, you just try to keep them in a cool place with ventilation, but they won't overheat and they won't be too cold. So there's no maintenance. You just want to keep the temperature reasonable. They're much less temperature sensitive than other batteries. So you don't even have to worry about the temperature so much. There's no maintenance. Lifespan is 4,500 cycles. Expected life of the Luna, 4,500 cycles. That could be 7, 8, 9, 10 years, around that time frame. Depends on the usage. How much maximum, I've already answered this question. Is Luna ambient free? Ambient, what do you mean? Ambient sound, or I'm not sure what you mean by that. Okay, so we are, yes, temp. So it's, the temperature range is wide. That's what I can say. As long as it's, I can definitely say with confidence, if it's below 40 degrees Celsius, you're doing well. So you don't have to worry about that. Temperature is not an issue. I only brought it up with the, compared to other battery chemistries. In case of three-phase inverter, will inverter provide single phase over Luna during power cutoff? Yes. In case of three-phase inverter, the inverter will provide single phase over Luna during power cutoff. Exactly. Exactly. You have a three-phase inverter and the Luna. When the grid is present, it works on all three phases. When the grid goes off, it will provide power from the Luna on a single phase. So that's something to be aware of when you install and when you're designing. Can we install it outdoor? Yes, you can. Yes, you can. Avoid direct sunlight and avoid water or flooding. So probably if it's outdoors, you may want to have under a canopy, but it is IP65 rating. So a little bit of water won't damage it, but if you keep it away from water as much as possible and away from direct sunlight as much as possible, you can install outdoor. All right, are there any more questions? I'll wait one or two more. What's the IP rating of the Luna? It's IP65. Last chance for questions. Any more questions? Okay, everyone. So we are going to end this presentation now. I would like to thank you for paying attention and also thank you for your good questions. It's a very new product, so we will make sure to include your questions in the future webinars. So I'm very happy to see the good questions coming up, and we will continue to build this. It's a very new product, as I said. It's good to know what are the questions that you're having after watching this presentation. So we will be ensured to include it. I see another question here. In case of two 15 kilowatt hour Luna storage, both connected in cascaded mode or directly to inverter. It's actually both. They're connected to each other and both are directly connected. It's plug and play, so you just plug it into the inverter. It's very easy. But yes, in the case of two 15 kilowatt hour Lunas, there's two connections to the inverter and a connection between them. So, okay, guys, I hope you've learned a lot about the Luna. I know it's a complicated product, so definitely we don't expect that you're experts today. Please reach out to us if you have more questions. We also have upcoming webinars on how to install the Luna. By the way, we have a Huawei certification program. You can become Huawei certified, and part of that training is including training sessions on how to install the Luna. So if you have more questions, you may want to consider going through the training program to become Huawei certified. It's free. If you're interested, please maybe make a message on LinkedIn or through email or anything like that, and we'll give you the registration link. So again, please reach out to us. We're happy to help. If you need any support, let us know. Connect on LinkedIn. We'll give you more answers. Watch for more webinars. We're having almost one webinar every week for this quarter. So thank you for your time. I look forward to meeting you and working with you. I hope you all have a wonderful day.